Hey, we're live on Facebook. Rabbi Hylan here with Rabbi Stewart, and I'm the Messianic Rabbi of Beit Tikva. And I thought once in a while it'd be nice to let you know how to find us at beittikva.us is our website, Beit Tikva, BEITTIKVAH.us, and also you could go to see these episodes that we're recording here at our Beit Tikva House of Hope Facebook page.
Yeah, and if you're in Seattle, I want to strongly encourage you to go to a wonderful Messianic Jewish congregation, Beit Tikva, led by my friend Rabbi Hylan. I know you're going to experience the presence of God and Jewish worship, Jewish joy, and the move of the Ruach HaKodesh, the Holy Spirit. So if you're in Seattle, check out Beit Tikva, and it's always good to be here with you, my friend. And I'm Stewart Winograd. I am co-founder of Reachii International, along with my beloved wife Chantal. And Reachii International has a special mission to serve survivors of the Holocaust. And today is Yom HaShoah. Today is Holocaust Remembrance Day, a national day of remembering in the land of Israel and for all friends of the Jewish people around the world. We are remembering the 6 million, more than probably 6 million innocent Jewish men, women, and children that were brutally tortured and murdered by the Nazi killing machine. And their only crime was being born Jewish. Mm-hmm. And so this is a very significant day because this kind of genocide, this kind of anti-Semitic hatred and genocide and dehumanizing Jewish people is a day for the whole world to remember, first of all, because we should all stand against anti-Semitism and hatred of Jewish people, but we should also remember any kind of any people just because they're different than you are is not pleasing to God, and we should make our voices heard. We should make our voices heard to stand against any kind of prejudice and hatred against any specific groups of people. We don't have to agree with how everybody thinks, and we should not agree. We should agree with those who agree with the scriptures, with what God says, but we shouldn't hate, and we don't want to destroy. So Yom HaShoah, very important day. And I know this is very significant for you as well, Hylan.
Yeah, this, of course, being Jewish, growing up in a Jewish community, I think I knew 2 Gentiles in my childhood. My neighbor, and then 1 or 2 kids in school. My school was probably 90% Jewish, but knowing that there was anti-Semitism in the world, knowing that our people had been persecuted, was something that I just grew up with. It was part of who we were, part of who we are today. And as you and I have mentioned earlier on earlier programs, that anti-Semitism is irrational, it's illogical, and it's demonic. It's something that comes from the pit of hell. It comes from Satan himself, because it doesn't make any sense if you just look at the details. And so much of it is just made up and contrived. So our people have been persecuted since the beginning of time, I think, because Satan knew that the Messiah would come from our people. Yeshua, Messiah, would be born a Jew. And so he wanted to destroy the Jews. And you can go way back and think about the different things that happened throughout history, and then even into recent history as well, because the Messiah is coming back. And lots of Christians have been persecuted as well because they've accepted the Jewish Messiah. But personally, I just want to mention a little bit of our story. I married my wife in 1968. And so we'll be married 53 years this coming August. And we met in 1967, so it's almost 54 years in October. And her parents were both survivors. Her mother was hidden in an attic for 2.5 years with her sister and her parents. So the 4 of them Rita's mother, Rita's aunt, and Rita's grandparents, all hidden in an attic by a Christian Polish woman, a widow. And they asked her, why did you risk your life and the life of your children, your 4 children, to save this Jewish family? And she said she had a dream. In the dream, God spoke to her and said, save the Medic family. They say Mark in English, Merick, Medic in Polish. And so she did, and they survived. That's a whole story all by itself. And then Rita's father, my father-in-law, may they both rest in peace, was in 5 concentration camps, lived in a little village on the San River, which was the border of Ukraine and Poland for many years. And he was captured by the Nazis in 1942, taken to Plaszow, which was the camp that Oskar Schindler got his workers from outside of Krakow. And then he was in Częstochowa, Skarżycku, Buchenwald, and liberated from Mauthausen. And my wife and I have been to Plaszow, we've been to Auschwitz, we've been to Mauthausen, we saw where he was liberated from in Austria. And growing up the way my wife described it, she grew up in the shadow of the Holocaust. So the Holocaust, the Shoah in Hebrew, has been a big part of our family, our children's story as well. And so coming to today for the Yom HaShoah, Holocaust Remembrance Day, it's a big deal to us.
Yeah, it's very personal to you, and it's very personal to me as well. We have family members that were lost in the Holocaust, but also 26 years ago, the Lord, Yeshua, who radically changed my life and taught me how to live with purpose and to care about people, he gave us a wonderful privilege and a great responsibility to serve as many Holocaust survivors as he would enable us to for as long as we and they lived on the earth. And we have been doing that for 26 years in Belarus, starting in 1995, and we began serving Holocaust survivors about 7 years ago in the land of Israel. And we have just wonderful team members in both Belarus and Israel that carry that same heart of compassion for the survivors that me and my wife Chantal has. And week after week, they just sacrificially serve and give, asking, and in Russian, it's called biskorizna, asking nothing in return, wanting nothing in return. And I have to say that honoring Holocaust survivors and serving them, loving on them, becoming friends with dozens of them and family to many, 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 has been one of the greatest privileges and honors in my life and in my wife's life. And so it's very personal to us. There are many survivors in Belarus and Israel that are longing to see us, and we're longing to see them, because usually if it wasn't for COVID, we're in Belarus a few times a year. We're in Israel a few times a year, spending 2-3 months in each of those places. But for the past year, we have been unable to get on an airplane and leave America and go to either Belarus or Israel. We're hoping to get there on May 6th. Israel just declared that they're going to allow family members of citizens. Yesterday, this was a declaration of the government. They're going to allow family members of Israeli citizens to come into the country. There's a whole bureaucratic process. So we've already begun that, and we trust we'll be able to fly on May 6th, not only to see our oldest daughter and our 2 granddaughters and family there, but to see just so many Holocaust survivors that are so dear to us. And I just want to give folks an idea of this relationship that we have with the survivors. This is a letter that I just received. Let me see here. This is a letter that I just received from Gita Kaufman. Gita is the chairman, the leader of an Israeli National Holocaust Survivors Association. Her organization represents 3,000 Holocaust survivors.
Hmm.
There's about 150,000 survivors still in Israel today, but her organization represents 3,000 Holocaust survivors throughout the land of Israel, survivors of concentration camps and ghettos in the former Soviet Union. And so this is what she wrote to us. I think it will give folks an idea, those who pray with us, pray for the survivors, those who support our work. This will give you a good taste of what it means to the survivors. This is from Gita Kaufman, the chairman of the National Association we work with. Came to me just before Passover. With the Pesach, Passover holiday approaching, on behalf of all the Holocaust survivors and on my own behalf, please accept our sincere gratitude for your partnership with our association and for your ongoing help of the survivors of concentration camps and ghettos. We are all well aware of the multifaceted activities of your friendly team, established under your leadership to help people who survived the horrors of Nazism and the Holocaust. Your team finds the time and energy to meet personally with each survivor, to listen carefully to their heartfelt stories about lost childhood, about the difficulties of survival, and of course, also about life today in the land of Israel. Your joint prayers for us and prayers together with us, festive gatherings on the biblical holidays, along with special excursions and special treats and gifts, do not go unnoticed. I was fortunate to participate in one of the Passover gatherings with your team, and that meeting remains in my memory. I was also fortunate to participate in one of the gatherings that you led, and that meeting is forever in my memory. We are also so grateful for your decision to expand into the Krayot, which is in the north of Israel, giving an opportunity for about 300 more Holocaust survivors to learn about your noble work and experience your love and attention toward them. God bless you. We wish you peace, prosperity, and the speedy return to Israel for in-person meetings. I can tell you a letter like that means so much to me and my wife. Yeah.
Stewart, you need to send me a copy of that letter. I want to read it to our congregation. So our congregation, people have no idea, but we actually support Reach Initiative International on a monthly basis. We've been doing it for years because I would encourage people who are listening right now to support that ministry as well, because you're doing a good work, a real work, and God is in it. And to get a letter like that from a leader in Israel, I don't know what she believes, but it doesn't matter, is an incredible symbol, a status of the hand of God on what you're doing. It's fantastic. Can you send me a copy of that letter?
I will absolutely send you a copy of that letter, and please thank all of our friends at Beit Tikva, along with all of your leadership team, for your gracious ongoing support. And what we were able to do at Passover, because of the support of congregations like yours and many individuals and churches, we were able to organize Passover Seders for more than 200 Holocaust survivors around Israel. And for those who were unable to get out of their homes or didn't feel comfortable coming to a group meeting, we hand delivered right to their doorstep special Passover food and gifts. And a number of them said that when we came to their doorsteps, they thought they had been forgotten. They thought that nobody was, in the middle of COVID, they thought they were forgotten, but they were not forgotten. And we have done this a number of times throughout COVID, and we will continue to do this for survivors that cannot get to our biblical celebrations, which we do all of the Jewish biblical holidays. We do special excursions to biblical sites once a month. We have more than 7 home groups where we talk about life, God, the Bible. We pray together around Israel. And before COVID hit, we were doing more than 120 home visits every single month.
Mm.
So there was one survivor that said this when she came to one of our Passover celebrations. She said, "We have been sitting in our homes for the past year, only able to go to the doctor and to the store once in a while. Thank you so much. I've been so anxious to get to this celebration. It's like rest for my soul."
Mm. Can people help you? Can they join you? I mean, if someone feels a burden to work with survivors and to do what you're doing, to go door to door, can people join your organization?
Well, the best way to help us is pray for our teams and for the survivors. And so we send out an e-news every week, and often we're giving an update on the Holocaust survivor aspect of our ministry, in addition to the other aspects of our ministry in Belarus, India, Israel, and other places.
How can people get that email?
You can sign up by going to our website, Reachii.org, Reachii.org, Reachii.org. And when you do sign up, we want to send you an ebook from a good friend of mine, Yaakov Levin. It's his memoir. He's a Holocaust survivor, and he became a follower of Yeshua. And he worked together with me to encourage people all around the nation of Belarus where he lived. And Yaakov Levin, from the darkness of the Holocaust to light in Yeshua. When you sign up for our newsletter, it's free of charge, and we don't share your information with anyone. We're going to send you Yaakov Levin's ebook, and I'm sure you're going to be greatly moved and encouraged by Yaakov's story, because he is a hero. He suffered tremendously and lost family members, and he came out of it with a positive attitude, experienced the love of God, which again made him proud to be Jewish, because he was always ashamed to be Jewish, and then just discovered that the Messiah of Israel is real, that he really is the Passover lamb who gave his life for the sins of the Jewish people and the sins of all people, and rose from the dead. And Yaakov he's an amazing guy, and God just really poured his love into Yaakov's heart. And so we want you to get that ebook. And if you're moved to support us, the way we were able to organize these Passover seders and celebrations and to deliver these gifts is because of friends and partners who believe in what God is doing through the ministry of Reach Initiative International. And if you want to get in on that with your gifts and donations, we welcome your partnership, and you can also do that at reachii.org, REACHII.org.
Perfect. Let me mention something. Some of our viewers know that there are quite a few Holocaust museums around the world. The flagship is in Jerusalem, Yad Vashem, and I've been there many times, probably 15 times or so. One time I was visiting, they have a section called the Children's Museum. And you walk in this sort of like a dark corridor. And when you get in, there's one light, and they've got this series of mirrors set up. So the one light becomes innumerable number of lights reflecting all over the ceiling. And as you're walking in, there 1.5 million children were killed in the Holocaust. And when you're walking into to the Children's Museum, there's a voice reading names, last names of children. And one of my visits, I'm walking in and I hear my last name, Slobodkin. I almost fainted. I had to grab the wall. I made my way out of the building. I couldn't continue. And I just sat there stunned. I had never heard my name walking into the museum before. And I knew there were Slobotkins who were killed from Ukraine, Russia, and also in Lithuania. But it just hit my heart. And that museum is hard to go through. But part of the reason why we're here today is we want people to know this is Holocaust Remembrance Day, Yom HaShoah. We need to remember the Holocaust so it doesn't happen again. And there are people who they call them Holocaust deniers. You know, Mahmoud Abbas, the leader of the PLO, is a Holocaust denier. He did his thesis on Holocaust denial, and he said it wasn't 6 million, it was only 600 Jews who were killed in the Holocaust. And you go, well, that's crazy. We know it's not true, but you know, if you say a lie often enough, people begin to believe it.
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, I have dozens and dozens of friends that are close friends who are Holocaust survivors. Many of them we call family, they call us family. We've heard their stories. One survivor lost 38 members of his family. 38. Many of them have lost anywhere from 2 to 15 members of their families. And just in the Minsk ghetto alone, I lived in Minsk with my wife and 4 children. Minsk is the capital of White Russia, Belarus, also called Belarus. For 12 years, I lived there. And we know the story of the Minsk ghetto. And there were more than 100,000 innocent Jewish men, women, and children who were murdered, first humiliated, tortured, starved, and murdered in the Minsk ghetto. And so Holocaust denial is another evil anti-Semitic manifestation that we need to stand against.
That's right.
Yeah. And I want to encourage everybody to raise their voices in love, in peace, but in clarity and firmness. Wherever you hear about Holocaust denial, raise your voice and make it clear. And I also want to say to everybody, within the next 3.5 months, we are going to publish a book about the sufferings of the Jewish people during the Holocaust and during communism in the former Soviet Union, and then us meeting them and living with them for 12 years and continuing to be with them, those that are still with us on this earth to this day. We're going to be publishing a book that will give you the historical facts of the sufferings of the Jewish people in the former Soviet Union, particularly in the land of Belarus, and particularly in the capital city of Minsk, where, as I mentioned, 100,000 Jewish innocent men, women, and children were murdered by the Nazi killing machine just in that Minsk ghetto. So be on the lookout for that book. We're going to make it available to you. And you're also going to be in awe of the positive spirits, the hope and the life, the tikva, the hope, the life in these survivors that have suffered so horribly. And you'll also read about their spiritual journeys, amazing spiritual journeys, which caused them, when they were, after being fed atheism, communism, or forced down their throats, so to speak, after the Holocaust. And of course, many had questions of where was God during the Holocaust. But then their spiritual journey back to discover a loving God. Why? Simply because God commissioned us and our teams to just love them and serve them and love them and serve them week after week after week after week. And It's 26 years now, as I mentioned, in the land of Belarus, and 7 years now in the land of Israel. And we are excited to be expanding into the Cryot. And those of you who really have it on your heart, I wanted to mention it earlier, I forgot, but we need to hire some additional staff, and we need additional funding to expand this work into the Cryot, where Gita Kaufman, the chairman of the National Association, said there's another 300 survivors. We're already reaching 200 of them, but our team is overwhelmed and overworked right now. So we need to hire additional staff, and we need additional funding to provide the kind of services and programs that the quality and the ongoing services and programs that they're used to receiving from us. So if people want to get in on that expansion, just say to help expand in Israel. Pray for that, please. And if you want to give a contribution to that, that will go a long way toward moving us into good position to serve all 300 of those survivors in the north of Israel in the Cryot.
Let me see a couple of things why I think this day is so important, aside from what we've already talked about. Remembering something that was so horrific, and people who are denying it or minimizing it for some reason because they're anti-Semitic or for whatever reason. Another reason is because these survivors are dying. They're in their 80s and 90s and maybe hundreds by now. Even the child survivors, they're in their late 70s and 80s, even those who were just born around in the middle of the Holocaust. There were actually children born in concentration camps. A lot of people aren't aware of. And so even in your 26 years in Belarus, I'm sure you've seen a number of survivors pass on, right?
Well, sadly, way too many. And in Israel alone, about 9,000 were lost during the COVID pandemic. So that's why we are in such a urgent mode to serve, right, to fulfill that commission of the Lord, to serve as many Holocaust survivors as He will enable us to for as long as they live on this earth. And we're committed to that.
And they're dying. I mean, to me, the urgency is greater than it has been. The urgency is getting more and more urgent, if I can even say that, because they're getting older and older, and they need to know about the love of God. They need to know that there are people who care about them. And that's what I like about Reach Initiative International. You're doing the work of ministry that so many of us cannot do. We're not, you're the, well, let's say the boots on the ground. You know, you're doing the work of ministry. And so in some way, because we're supporting the ministry, we're with you, at least in that way. And I wish I could be putting my feet in some of those boots.
Yeah, well, you know, the next time you're in Israel, Hylan, we'll have to go visit some of my dear friends, the survivors of the Holocaust. Together, we'll have a little tea in their home. They'll share some stories. They'll love meeting you, hearing your stories, and
that'd be awesome.
I'm sure we'll all be mutually encouraged. You'll love it, and it'll be our honor to take you to some of our friends' homes. And we can also arrange, if you ever do a tour, a couple of survivors could come and share their story. And we've done this before, and it's been very enriching for both the survivors and for those that come on a tour. So we can talk about that also. And also for anyone else out there, if you're a partner with Reach Initiative International, and you're planning a tour to Israel, we want to facilitate you actually meeting real survivors that you're helping us serve. So if you're a partner with us, we want to do that for you. And we know that your tour group would be enriched, and the survivors are enriched by people who are interested in their lives. So we'll facilitate that. And one thing I wanted to mention, I wanted to pick up on something that you stated earlier, and that is the righteous of the nations. We want to just say thank you to the righteous of the nations. There's a special section in Yad Vashem for the righteous of the nations. And who are those people? These are non-Jewish people who risk their lives, their families' lives, to save Jewish people, to keep them from the Nazis, and to help them to survive the horrors of the Holocaust. So we thank you. We bless you and your family members from generation to generation. I know God smiles upon you because you risk your life. You did something that's pleasing to God. You risk your life to save another life, and that is a beautiful thing.
The woman who saved my mother-in-law and her family, Mikalina Kedra, there's an olive tree planted at Yad Vashem with a plaque, nice plaque at the bottom of it with her name on it, where she's from, and the family that she saved. So super special. We've been there. We've seen the tree, and we've actually, my wife had been to Poland 4 times in the last 7 years, and we went into the attic that they lived in for 2.5 years. Talk about an emotional experience. My wife was just beside herself, had kind of like a catharsis in there, where she realized that her mother was in here, and she asked her aunt, what did you do for 2.5 years? She said, well, we would take a sweater and unravel it, and then we'd knit it back together again. Then we'd unravel it, knit it back together again. They couldn't go anywhere. This amazing woman and her children fed them, cared for them. You can imagine what it was like for 2.5 years in the super hot and humid summers of Poland to the freezing cold winters with no insulation in the attic, surviving all that time.
We thank God for the righteous of the nations.
Amazing.
And I had a wonderful experience a few years back. My wife has organized many trips to Poland to go to Auschwitz, and I think 9 trips I've been on with her many of those times. And so we go to Poland and visit Auschwitz, and the horrors. It's overwhelming. I mean, Auschwitz, the way the Nazis dehumanized and tortured people and then burned them in ovens. It was just beyond human imagination, the evil. But then we go into Belarus, where you see the positive side of things, where we meet with survivors and share stories and share love. And it's so wonderful. And another trip that she organized 3 years ago, we call it the dream trip. Why was it the dream trip? Because a number of our dear friends in Belarus, survivors of the Holocaust in their 80s and 90s, had never been to the land of Israel. And it was their dream before they passed from this earth to visit the Jewish homeland, the land of Israel. So we were able to organize this dream trip for 11 Holocaust survivors. The oldest one was 96. And
Wow.
we took them on a 10-day tour through the land of Israel. And of course, part of that time we spent at Yad Vashem, and 2 of those dear survivors, their lives were preserved because of righteous Gentile people, and they wanted to find where those trees were planted and where those plaques were. And I had the honor to lead them to the names of those dear people who risked their lives to save our friends, the Holocaust survivors' lives. So that was a very special moment as well.
Yeah, I'm gonna say one more thing as our time is drawing to a close here. My wife's aunt, who was hidden in the attic, married a man who was saved by Oskar Schindler. And so many Holocaust survivors didn't talk about their stories because they were just too horrific, too terrible, too heartbreaking. But after Schindler's List came out, Steven Spielberg's film in 1993, survivors felt an openness to start sharing. And of course, he started the Shoah Foundation, which has about 400 or 500 Holocaust stories now on videotape documented. almost as many as Mahmoud Abbas said was totally killed in the Holocaust, right? Ridiculous. And so again, Oscar Schindler, as my Uncle Abraham became a wealthy builder in New Jersey, he started naming streets after Schindler. Oscar Boulevard, Oscar Schindler Street, Schindler Court. On and he's got about 30 different streets named after Oscar Schindler in the New Jersey area. And so again, the Holocaust has been a very important part of our family story. And we want it to be a part of everyone's story, to understand that there was a time when a people group, the Nazis, decided that a certain other people group weren't worthy to live. And they, just because of who they were, just because they were Jews, and we can't ever let this happen again. Never forget is what a lot of survivors say.
Yes, we must always remember, never forget, and with our prayers, our words, and our loving actions say never again. And
Right.
and it starts with this. It's when the haters of Jewish people begin to dehumanize the Jewish people. You're already seeing this from Ayatollahs in Iran and Hezbollah and Hamas. They don't call Jewish people, they call them rats, and so you dehumanize people. That's what Hitler and his Nazi regime did. Total dehumanization, so that then it's easier to take their property, to burn their synagogues, to destroy their businesses, to imprison them, torture them, starve them, do experiments on them, because you dehumanize a whole nother group of people. And we must stand. If we are followers of Yeshua, or we consider ourselves people of good character, we must stand against all of the manifestations to dehumanize Jewish people and any other people on the face of this earth. This is a dark, horrible, demonic evil that must be stood up against with truth, with firmness, with clarity and love, with our prayers. And we need to raise our voices, and we need to influence people around, so that this kind of stuff doesn't grow like a cancer.
And man, do our station ID, Stewart, will you? You do it so well.
Yeah. Okay. Before I do a station ID, I just want to mention two other things. Tomorrow in Israel, 10 a.m. Israel time, the sirens will go off throughout the whole land, and everybody will stop, whether they're on the highway, whether they're washing dishes, whether they're in the middle of something important. They will stop for a moment of silence to remember the 6 million Jewish people that have perished, innocent Jewish people, during the Holocaust. So I want to encourage everybody at 10 a.m. your time, tomorrow, Yom HaShoah, Holocaust Remembrance Day, take a moment to a moment of silent prayer, if you're a praying person, and I hope you are, to remember the 6 million that were lost, and to pray for the more than 150,000 survivors that are still with us on this earth. And let me encourage you also to teach your generations. Teach your children, teach your grandchildren, so that they know what happened. It's very important that we never forget, so that it's never again. And this, first off for the Jewish people, but for any people that have been targeted for genocide and evils like what happened to the Jewish people in the Holocaust. So teach your generations. Take that moment tomorrow to have a moment of silence, 10 a.m., wherever you are, and also teach your generations. And I want to remind you that this ebook by Yaakov Levin, a dear friend, a survivor of the Holocaust, is available to you free of charge. I know It's a powerful story. It's a story of great suffering, great courage, great hope, and a story of great redemption from the darkness of the Holocaust to light in Yeshua, Yaakov Levin, Holocaust survivor Yaakov Levin's story. So I want to encourage you to get hold of that, Reachii.org, or ask for it on our Facebook page, the Reach Initiative Facebook page. So tune in next week, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. We're going to be talking about Yom HaAtzmaut, Israel Independence Day, and Yom HaZikaron, which is a Remembrance Day. We'll describe it all to you. And we'll be back next week at our normal time, which is 5 Eastern, 2 Pacific. And if you missed this episode, or you want to hear it again, or you just heard a part, or you want to share it, you can find it on the Reach Initiative Facebook page, on the Beit Tikva Messianic Congregation Seattle Facebook page, or the Reach Initiative International website, reachii.org. And all of the past episodes are there as well. So we've been doing this every week for quite some time. So there's a lot of stuff that we covered, and there's more to come. So we look forward to sharing time with you. Thank you for sharing your time with us. We bless you. We love you. And Rabbi Hylan,
I have one more thing I want to share.
Go for it.
Yeah, just sort of like another little encouragement. Friday night this week, so it'll be April 9th, just in 2 days. Our daughter Hannah, granddaughter of Holocaust survivors, is doing a very special presentation that we'll be presenting Friday night via Zoom. So anyone in the world can join with us. And it's called Understanding the Holocaust Through a Biblical Perspective. Very interesting. My daughter has got a BA in psychology, graduated magna cum laude from college, very bright young lady, and taught school for 15 years. Now she's a stay-at-home mom. But this presentation is wonderful. And you can go to our website at beittikva.us, BEITTIKVAH.US, as in United States, beittikva.us. And in the upper right, you'll see a list of weekly Zoom meetings. Find the one that says Kabbalat Shabbat, and there'll be another little addition to it that says special presentation on the Holocaust by our daughter. Anyway.
What time will that be?
Thank you for asking the question. 7 p.m. Pacific time, which will be 10 p.m. Eastern time. And we're also my wife and I are going to do a little presentation of the Holocaust for just a few minutes. And we're going to light 6 candles for the 6 million. And we're going to pray, and then we're going to turn it over to our daughter. So it'll be a very special presentation on the Holocaust.
So that's 7 p.m. this Friday, April 9th,
Pacific time.
4 p.m. Eastern time, 3-hour time.
No, 3 hours later.
Oh, 10 p.m. Right.
10 p.m. Eastern time.
Yes, right. I'm always used to reversing it. 10 p.m.
Right.
Okay, you got it. All right. So would you do us the honor of praying to close out this time together?
Sure. Lord, I thank you for my brother Stewart. Thank you for he and Chantal, the amazing work they've been doing in Belarus for these 26 years, and now in Israel, and now, Lord, the open door to expand into the Krayot. What a great opportunity to reach more Holocaust survivors. So, Lord, I pray that our viewers would have this similar burden to reach these survivors before they pass on. And we have a message of life for them, a message of eternal life for them. So, Lord, I pray that you would continue to use Reach Initiative International. You'd use Beit Tikva and in all that we're doing to be a witness of your love and your truth wherever we go. So we thank you for those who have been viewing this episode today. Bless them as well. And we say to them, Shalom, and God bless you in Yeshua's name.
Amen.
Amen.
Again, I just want to say thank you, everybody, for sharing your time with us. And again, for me and my wife, it's one of the greatest honors that we have had in our lives to serve, honor, remember, and bless Holocaust survivors. Thank you, Rabbi Hylan, for your encouragement. And we just thank everyone who prays and partners with us. We appreciate you so much. And don't forget, take that minute of silence tomorrow, 10 a.m., wherever you are, to remember the 6 million Jews that have been lost, sadly murdered during the Holocaust, and pray for the survivors. They're getting older, those that are with us, but they're
That's right.
such a joy to know them. Well, thank you, everyone, again. And we could go on and on, but I guess we'll bring this to a close. We'll look forward to being with everybody next Wednesday.
Shalom.
Shalom.